We're on the lookout for sponsors to join us on our incredible journey with Inspired Change with Gunter. If your organisation cares deeply about meaningful conversations around masculinity, self-development and mental health, we'd love to partner with you. Our podcast has a wonderful, dedicated audience committed to personal growth and positive social change. By sponsoring Inspired Change with Gunter, your brand will connect with listeners who truly value thoughtful discussion and support initiatives that promote real transformation. We're incredibly proud to be ranked number 1 in Australia and number 5 in the USA on FeedSpot's top men's mental health podcasts. For more information on how to become a sponsor, please reach out to Miranda Spiegner Sapon, our showrunner and executive producer. We'd love to explore how we can work together to inspire change. Now, thank you for your continued support, and let's keep inspiring change together.
You're listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. To guide us through the intricacies and intersections of emotions, relationships, and male identity is renowned psychologist, author, and speaker Gunter Swoboda. This is Inspire Change.
Before I begin the actual podcast, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I work. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. And the series is The Songs That Made Us. So, for all of those who are encouraging me to continue with this particular series, thank you. I'm actually really enjoying it. As always, I'm a bit of a research hound, so the opportunity to dig into something other than psychology, anthropology, the loves of my life, I still, get a real kick out of different topics. So you'll never know what comes up. Now, to get this particular episode rolling, I want you to picture a hotel room in Honolulu, late 1969. A young Canadian songwriter has arrived the night before, close to 11 o'clock, on her first visit to Hawaii. So far, she's seen nothing. In the morning, she runs to the window and pulls back the curtains. And there it is. Green mountains in the distance, white birds flying low. The whole postcard made real. Then she looks down. Directly below her, stretching as far as she can see, is a parking lot. Now, Joni Mitchell told that story from the stage on the 29th of November 1969, barely 2 weeks after it happened. Decades later, she recalled the same morning for Mojo magazine and added a detail the stage version left out. She said the sight broke her heart. She called it a blight on paradise. And then she sat down and wrote a song about it, a short one. Bright, quick, almost cheeky. Those of you in my era will absolutely know the song. Those of you who are into music will probably know it as well, no matter what generation. Those of you who don't, I want to encourage you to check it out, find it, listen to it, and get a sense of what I'm talking about. And here is what interests me as a psychologist with this song. The song's chorus turns on a single psychological observation, that we only discover the value of a thing at the moment we lose it. Now, why should that be true? Why are human beings built so that love arrives late, after the taxi has already pulled away from the curb? That's the question this song has been asking for over half a century. So let's spend 20 minutes with it. By late 1969, Joni Mitchell was 26 years old and living in Laurel Canyon, just above Los Angeles, at the center of a songwriter community that was reshaping popular music. Her second album, Clouds, had come out that spring. She'd already written songs that other people made famous before her own versions were widely heard. She was, by every account, at the height of an early creative surge, and she was tired. That November, she flew to Hawaii, her first time there, for a stay of only 2 days. Now, 2 days in any place is never enough. Take it from me. But sometimes we got no choice. The trip gave her the window, the mountains, and the parking lot. What she did with them tells you something about how she worked. She didn't write a lament. She wrote what she herself, introducing it on stage that same month, called a little rock and roll song to commemorate the occasion. The registration of copyright is dated the 7th of January 1970. Within weeks, she was at A&M Studios in Hollywood recording her third album, Ladies of the Canyon, with Henry Louis engineering. Now, she produced the sessions herself, which in 1970 was still a rare arrangement for any artist, and even rarer still for a woman. The album appeared on Reprise in April 1970, and Big Yellow Taxi came out as a single that same month. Its commercial story is odd and I think revealing. In the United States, the original single stalled at number 67 on the Billboard Hot 100. In her native Canada, it reached the top 15. In the United Kingdom, it went to number 11, and in Australia, it went to number 6. Says a bit about us, doesn't it? And by Mitchell's own account, it was a regional hit in Hawaii almost immediately. Because, as she put it in that Mojo interview, people there could see their paradise being chewed up. The rest of the world took longer. We were a little slow out of the gate. I remember during the mid-70s being involved in Greenpeace marches saving the whales, and particularly marching against uranium and nuclear weapons. That was the mid-70s. This predates it by quite a bit. Joni Mitchell reckoned it took 20 years for the song to sink in elsewhere. The live version, released in 1974, actually climbed higher on the American charts than the studio originally had, which supports her reading. The song did not date. It ripened like a good wine. Listen to the original recording and you can hear why it confused the American market in 1970. It's jaunty. The guitar bounces, the backing vocals grin, and at the very end, after she drops her voice low for the final line, Joni Mitchell laughs. Well, actually, it was a giggle pressed into the vinyl. Now, protest songs just weren't supposed to giggle. Folk was earnest, rock was angry, and yet here was a song about environmental destruction that sounded like a day at the beach. That apparent mismatch between the sound and the subject is not a flaw. It is, I want to argue, the psychological engine of the whole piece, to see why we need to talk about how human beings actually value things. So, start with the chorus. Without quoting it, I can describe its logic. It observes that we fail to recognize what we have until it has gone. And it repeats that observation verse after verse, like a law of nature, which, in a sense, it is. In 1979, the psychologists Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky published a paper in Econometrica. Let me try that again. Econometrica, called Prospect Theory. I don't know why they choose words like that. Sometimes academics get a little way ahead of themselves. Let me come back to the point. This particular journal is one of the most, or articles, one of the most cited papers in the history of social sciences. It is good, I'll give you that. Amongst its findings is a phenomenon they call loss aversion. So what's that about? Well, a loss hurts us roughly twice as much as an equivalent gain pleases us. Think about this. The pain of losing $50 outweighs the pleasure of finding that very $50. Value in the human nervous system is not symmetrical. We are exquisitely tuned to what is being taken from us and strangely numb to what we securely hold. Now, add to that what researchers call hedonistic adaptation, the mind's habit of turning the constant into the invisible. The mountains outside your window on the first morning are breathtaking. By the 40th morning, you no longer see them. Whatever is reliably presented gets filled or filed as a background and stops generating feeling at all. Habituation. Put those two mechanisms together and you get the chorus of this song. The present good is invisible because it is constant. The lost good is vivid because loss is what our attention was built to register. Mitchell, with no laboratory and 9 years before Kahneman and Tversky's paper, compressed that entire asymmetry into a single and singable observation. That is evidence of nothing clinical about her. Let me be clear. It is evidence of how precisely a good songwriter can observe ordinary minds, including her own. Now, let's get to the environmental layer. In 2007, the Australian philosopher Glenn Albrecht and his colleagues, writing in Australian Asian Psychiatry, gave a name to something people had felt for a long time without having a word for it. Solastalgia. Nostalgia is the pain of being away from home. Solastalgia is the pain of staying home while the place you call home is changed around you. And I'm extremely cognizant of this right here and now, when in my own area, in my own country, the property developers have been given a free rein to turn suburbs, villages, into high-rise jungles where there is no sense about infrastructure, about the psychological impact on human beings, and so on. Don't get me on my platform right now. Let me come back to the song. My place is changing, and I'm not embracing this happily at all. So we have this occur in other places. The mining town resident who watches the valley become a pit. The islander is watching the shoreline shrink. You've not moved, yet the place that you held and that's held you is leaving. Well, I'll be a bit stronger than that. It's being destroyed. Later work by Ashley Consolo and Neville Ellis, published in Nature Climate Change in 2018, described ecological grief, real mourning, with a full apparatus of grief for species, landscapes, and ways of life that are disappearing. The starting point for some empathy for the indigenous peoples. Surely, think about it. Their point, and it matters, is that this grief is not a disorder. It is a sane response to real loss, and one of our culture's give people almost no ritual for it at all. We don't acknowledge it. And I've spoken about grief with men before as well. Now sit with that for a moment because it explains something about our present. Grief for a person has a shape that our culture knows. There are rituals, casseroles, condolence cards, depending on which culture you come from, open or closed caskets, and agreed periods of mourning, 12 months, mass, whatever it is. Grief for a marsh, a reef, a paddock at the edge of town has none of that. Nobody sends flowers when the woodland comes down. So the feeling circulates without a container, and people often experience it as a private oddity, something faintly embarrassing to admit. One of the quiet services a song can perform is to become that container. 3 minutes of shared forum for a feeling that has no funeral. Mitchell's hotel window scene is, I would suggest, one of the earliest pop cultural records of exactly that experience. She arrives expecting paradise, and paradise is there, but so is the asphalt, both at once, together in a single glance. The distress is not about the place she left, it's about the place being unmade in front of her. The song then does something clinically interesting with that distress. It makes it funny. The verses are a tour of absurdities. A botanical garden with trees are exhibited like a museum piece, and admission is charged to see what once grew freely. A plea to a farmer to set the DDT aside, offering to accept blemished apples in exchange for living birds and bees. The grief travels inside the joke, and as always, humour has a dark underside. And that, any therapist will tell you, is one of the oldest regulation strategies we have. Humour holds the unbearable at just enough distance so that we can look at it. The giggle at the end of the record is not carelessness. One reading, and I flag this as an interpretation rather than fact, is that the lightness is what makes the heaviness bearable enough to hear. Then comes the last verse, and the song pivots. After the trees, after the pesticides, the scene suddenly narrows to a bedroom at night. A screen door slams. The big yellow taxi of the title pulls away, taking a man out of the singer's life. And the chorus lands one more time, except now it is about him, and it's about love. The same law that governed the parking lot governs the ending of intimacy. We see what we once had leaving. Whether that verse records a real departure from Mitchell's life in 1969, I can't tell you. And I'd be speculating if I tried. What I can say, however, is that what the structure does to the listener, it takes an argument about landscape and quietly reveals it as always that it's also an argument about attachment. The ecological and the personal are not two subjects. They are one mechanism at two scales. In the framework this series uses, the song is doing 3 things of the 7 jobs songs do for us. Recognition, it gives people language. Decades early, for Solastalgia and ecological grief. Remembrance, it functions as a record of what stood where the asphalt now is, a 2-minute memorial. And transformation, by naming the mechanism of too late, it holds open the possibility of noticing in time. Now, none of this lands in a vacuum. 8 years before, in 1962, Rachel Carson's Silent Spring had documented what persistent pesticides, DDT above all, were doing to birds, fish, and the food chain, and had put the chemical industry on the defensive and on notice. The controversy was still burning when Mitchell wrote her verse asking the farmer to put the chemical away. The United States banned most uses of DDT in 1972, 2 years after the song's release. A pop single had, in effect, taken a position in a live regulatory fight, and history took the song's side. The timing of the release is almost uncanny. Ladies of the Canyon appeared in April 1970. On the 22nd of that same month, the first Earth Day brought an estimated 20 million Americans onto streets and campuses. Roughly 1 in 10 citizens of that country, in what the historian Adam Rome has called the making of the first screen generation. Mitchell didn't write for Earth Day. The timeline makes that clear, since the song existed by November 1969. But the culture and the song were clearly drawn on the same underground spring, a dawning, uneasy recognition that post-war abundance had a bill attached, and the bill was being paid in landscape. Hawaii matters here too. The islands in the late 60s were in the middle of a tourism construction boom. Hotels springing up along Waikiki at breakneck speed. The Pink Hotel, the lyric has long been identified with as the Royal Hawaiian on Waikiki Beach, and a Honolulu Star Bulletin reporter of the period identified the garden charging admission to view its trees as Foster Botanical Garden. I report both identifications as reported rather than confirmed. Mitchell herself has been vaguer about the specifics. What is not vague is the complaint's shape. Every verse describes the same transaction. Something alive and shared gets converted into something built and sold. Something dead and mechanistic. A landscape becomes a parking lot. A forest becomes an exhibition, an exhibit with a turnstile. An orchard's health is traded against the appearance of its fruit. This is a song about commodification written at the exact historical moment when the language of environmentalism was moving from scientists and poets into the ordinary kitchen and living room. And notice who wrote it. The canonical protest voices of the 70s were overwhelmingly male, and their target was overwhelmingly the war. A 26-year-old woman producing her own records wrote the era's most durable, environmental song, and wrote it not as a sermon, but as something you could dance to. The gender politics of who gets remembered as serious as having shaped this song's reputation has persisted ever since. It was often filled with light. Half a century on, the light is one of the things that's still doing its cultural work. So you might want to ask why this particular song endures the way it does. For me, the simplest answer is that the mechanism it names has not gone anywhere. Loss aversion, the hedonic adaptation are as active in your nervous system this morning as they were in a Honolulu hotel in 1969. Every generation rediscovers the song because every generation re-encounters the experience. The field you played in as a child is a distribution centre now. At the back of my suburb, there were tomato farms, horse yards, all sorts of landscape that was natural, creeks, frogs, the whole bit, snakes, not such a good thing if you're not careful. But now it's just one housing development after another. the green grass is confined to a child's playground. You feel the ache precisely on the day the diggers arrive, not the day before. The song has also been renewed by other voices. Janet Jackson built a hit around a sample of it in 1997. Counting Crows took a version into the global charts, in the early 2000s. Each cover re-timestamped the warning for a new audience, and the warning keeps getting more literal. When Mitchell wrote it, the loss in question was a view and some trees. Listeners now hear it through bushfire season, bleached reefs and vanishing glaciers, and a fauna landscape that is diminishing. The vocabulary of solastalgia and ecological grief, which scholarship only built in the last 20 years, arrived to find the song already waiting. Like a room prepared decades in advance. There's also a subtler reason for why it lasts, and it lies in that final verse. A song that was only about asphalt would age into a period piece, filed alongside its decades' other causes. By folding the departure into a lover into the same chorus, Mitchell made the song about the general case, the human habit of arriving too late to our loved ones, to our own loves. That is not a 60s problem. It's a Tuesday problem for everybody. Listeners who could not care less about botanical gardens still flinch at that screen door because everyone has stood in a doorway, understanding one beat too late what had just left their lives. Mitchell herself, in that 2019 Mojo interview, made a striking claim that in a couple of cities, parking lots have been torn up and turned back into parks simply because of the song. So just take this as an artist's account. It's most likely true. I know certainly in some areas, lots of people have been involved in getting rid of car parks and turning them into green spaces, neighbourhood gardens, the works. Partly to feed people, but also partly to enhance emotionally the place. It is one of the very few pieces of popular music that people reach for when they want to argue in public for keeping something. That is a strange and wonderful afterlife for a little rock and roll song written to commemorate a ruined view. So we arrive at the place where I want you to reflect. Take 3 questions to carry you into your week. First, close to the record itself. Listen to the original 1970s recording right to the end and sit with a giggle. What does the brightness of this song do to you as a listener? Does the lightness let the loss in or let you off? Second, a step closer to home. Somewhere in your daily landscape, there is something you stopped seeing years ago because it is always there. A tree, a building, a view, a person's morning routine. What would you name right now as the thing you would most grieve if it were gone by Friday? Third, and this is the hard one, if our minds are genuinely built to register value only at the point of loss, what practice, personal or collective, could teach us to see what we still have while we still have it? What would a culture look like that noticed this in time? Now, for Patreon members, this week's exercise works with exactly that question. It's a 30-minute writing practice I've called the Inventory of Still Here, and it walks through noticing on paper what is present in your life before absence does the noticing for you. You will find it in this week's post. And here's a conversation worth having. Find someone who's lived in your suburb, town, or district longer than you have. Ask them what stood where the newest building now stands. Then just listen. You'll be surprised what gets handed to you. I'm Gunter Swoboda. This has been Songs That Made Us, a part of Inspire Change. Until next week, stay inspired, inspire others, and be curious. Until next time, this is me signing off. You know, on this show, we talk a lot about living with purpose, slowing down, paying attention, and being intentional about the choices we make every day. Because when we simplify the noise around us, we can better hear what really matters. Empathy, connection, and showing up as the best version of ourselves. That's why I'm genuinely pleased to welcome our newest sponsor, Distill Union. Their philosophy aligns beautifully with what we do here. Distill Union creates slick, thoughtfully designed essentials, wallets, key organizers, phone cases, all built with a less is more approach. Their Wally wallets, Ferris key organizers, these are everyday tools that make life easier, cleaner, and calmer. In that simplicity, there's space for clarity. There's space for change. As a thank you to our Inspire Change community, they're offering 20% off any product with the promo code Inspire Change. Have a look, try them out, and see how simplifying your day can open the door to something deeper. Visit distillunion.com and enjoy 20% off any product with the promo code Inspire Change. That's distillunion.com with promo code Inspire Change to check out.
Hello to all our listeners. We thank you for tuning in and supporting positive social change, which makes you a part of Gunter's efforts in transforming not only men's lives, but lives in general. And we are grateful that you have joined us. We want to extend a huge thank you to our listeners in Sparks for bringing Nevada to number 10 on the top 10 USA listeners list. And to our global listeners, we extend our gratitude to our listeners in Frankfurt am Main, Eschborn, Haasfurt, Mannheim, and Berlin for bringing Germany up from number 14 all the way to number 3 on our global listeners' top 20. We also want to share our gratitude with our listeners in Athens for bringing Greece to number 19 on our global listeners list for the first time ever. Congratulations! You made it to the top listeners list. I, Devonna Prinzi, the co-executive producer, and our showrunner, Miranda Spigner-Sapone, sincerely thank you and ask that you please take the time to like, follow, subscribe, and share as your efforts make a difference to everyone here at Inspire Change with Gunter. If these stories resonate with you and you would like to engage more with Gunter and the Inspire Change team, please consider joining our Patreon community, where our members find bonus content and early access to video episodes. Membership awaits at patreon.com/Inspire Change. That's patreon.com/INSPIRECHANGE. As always, thank you to each and every one of our listeners. And most importantly, please keep inspiring positive social change.
Love to hear from you. And if you're interested, please check out my work on www.gunterswoboda.com or www.goodmengreat.com.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. For more information on the Making Good Men Great movement, or for individual or group coaching sessions with Gunter, visit goodmengreat.com.